Hey folks, this week Randall joins me and we talk with Michael and Benedikt about Emba. That's the open source firmware analysis toolkit that seems to do about everything and just about includes the kitchen sink too. You don't want to miss it, so stay tuned. This is Floss Weekly, episode 802, recorded Wednesday, September 24th. Emba, layers upon layers of bash.
It's time for Floss Weekly, the show about free, libre, open source software. I am your host, Randall Schwartz, Merlin at StoneEdge.com, bringing you each week the movers, the shakers,
Randall,
the big...
Randall.
What? Wait,
I'm
Jonathan.
The host.
Jonathan.
I'm the host.
I
You're the co-host today. You're the co-host today. This is Floss Weekly, and I'm the host,
so
Jonathan Bennett.
I'm so sorry.
And Randall Schwartz is back as co-host today. Oh, goodness.
I wake up in the middle of the night sometimes saying that exact phrase because I said it for, 13 years worth of shows. Yeah. So it's... I really, really do want to appreciate you bringing me back as now possibly an occasional, as often as you'll let me co-host, because I miss the show. I've got to say that for everybody out there who's been long, loyal friends. I do miss the show. What I don't miss is that I now have my 5 hours a week back. As Jonathan well knows, there's a lot of time. There's a lot of time that goes into this show every week, every week, and I'm happy to have most of that back now. And the 2 hours a week that it'll take to co-host here, much simpler than being the producer, showrunner, and host. So thank you, Jonathan, for doing that job and keeping the show going. I appreciate that as well. So.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about taking over the show is that I get to have Doc Searles and Randall back as part of the rotating cadre of co-hosts, and I think that's just fun to be able to have you guys back involved with the show. So today's topic is Emba, and it's a firmware analysis tool. I think mainly targeted at Linux firmware. This is it's really an interesting thing. There's a lot of OpenWRT, right? Like, I'm a fan of OpenWrite, but there's a lot of old versions of OpenWRT that are out there in the wild, and it's pretty scary sometimes to see like 10-year-old firmware still out there shipped on devices. And I kind of wonder, do they have a module that just spits out, this is this release of OpenWRT, beware?
Yeah, and I'm not terribly in this space, so I had to do a bit of research to try to figure out how this is being used. But now that you mentioned OpenWRT, there's a recent news item actually that says that TP-Link's routers are now all considered caustic, and so because they were made in China, and apparently there's been some spyware that's been traced to TP-Link, so everything TP-Link is at risk right now. So
yeah. Yeah, I saw that story. I'm not sure if I'm not sure if the statement was that they are like compromised and malicious from the factory, or that they just have 0 days that allowed them to get popped in that
I was going to say, I
malware.
think we have some experts coming up that can answer questions kind of like that. I'm also interested, in particular, in reading ahead of the show. Is this primarily a white hat tool, or can it be used as a black hat tool? And what are the implications of that? Having a tool that can do pen testing and vulnerability testing on a common piece of firmware somewhere. I think it's probably one of the questions I'm curious about.
Well, we do have the experts. We will make sure and ask about that. I do want to mention that Hackaday Floss Weekly is a part of Hackaday. Hackaday is a part of SupplyFrame, and SupplyFrame is actually owned by Siemens. And I say that because the Emba project was at least partially developed originally as a part of Siemens, or there's at least some shared history there. So we want to make full disclosure. Now, we do have Michael and Benedikt with us today, and I want to say welcome to both of you.
Hi. Hey guys, good to have you. Good to be here.
Yeah, so maybe the best place to start here is to ask each of you, how do you fit into the project? Like, what are your individual roles in this thing?
So from my side, I'm currently primarily or directly with the central Emba project. I'm maintaining the central Emba project, which is let's say the scanning backend. Um, I'm more or less the founder of the whole Emba idea, of the firmware analysis idea, and we've started multiple projects from time to time. One is Emba, the other is Embark, where Benedikt is the main maintainer now. At the end, we can split it in this way. If we talk about the main Ember project, then probably with me, and if we are going to the let's say management interface, enterprise overview, and collaboration interface, then Benedikt is the guy to talk to.
Yeah, and so same question to you, Benedikt. How do you fit into the project?
As Mike just said, I'm the main developer responsible for Embark right now. Embark is our enterprise solution, like taking Emba as a backend and then trying to put it into a nice server front end. How people would need it in the business environment. And that's
Yeah. Okay. So probably then a question for Mike. I'm super interested in this idea of packaging it, but let's start with Michael first, since you kind of kicked the project off. And I do want to know, like, what is that tie-in? Like, what did the beginning of this look like, and what is the tie-in with Siemens? What was like the first problem that you guys wanted to solve?
Yeah. So probably we need to go a little bit in back to the future. I think we started with all of this. Let's say, what was it, 10 to 11 years back? I think everyone started with IoT hacking then. There was Binwalk. Craig Hefner did a lot of nice blog posts about cool IoT hacking, cool exploits. Everyone tried to show some hardware hacking stuff, and the idea was back then at Siemens that we get away from the typical black box approach on testing products, our own products and also third-party products, to a more gray boxish penetration testing style with the firmware in hands. So with the firmware, you would be able to understand what happened in the background. If you're attacking the device, if you're trying to find vulnerabilities, you get a better idea what happens in the background and which ways probably could be successful. And this was in this time also we built the hardware hacking lab to extract the flash storage, to get access to the firmware. Sometimes you're in a lucky position to go just to the vendor website, download the firmware. Sometimes the firmware is behind a paywall or something else. And so we started with hardware hacking, identification of UART, JTAG, extracting flash storage, and all the things. And then we had the firmware in hands, and we were struggling really hard because we had not more time to perform our penetration test, but we had so many ideas, and we want to do much more stuff now, and so we needed to start automating everything that it's possible. So and this was more or less the initial idea of Emba. It is more of an automation framework in the field of embedded product Linux penetration testing that should help originally that should only help the penetration tester. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's more or less it started, like, I would say 10 to 11 years ago, mm-hmm. With an idea.
Yeah, and so it's interesting to see like the number of devices that are out there that just like the firmware is Linux. And we talked briefly before the show or in the intro about OpenWRT. Is that a lot of what you guys see, that it's just, ancient versions of OpenWRT that just get shipped on some of these devices?
Yeah, you definitely see OpenWRT everywhere, but let's say in the IoT environment, you see it everywhere. If you're moving a little bit away from IoT more to the OT environment, where bigger products for factories or for other things are used, then we see OpenWRT not that often. But in the IoT world, it's quite regular, definitely.
Yeah, one of the fun discoveries that I've had is a lot of Ubiquity hardware, which that's sort of your small office, home office to medium size. I mean, they have some impressive stuff. Like all of the access points, that's just OpenWRT, or at least it was last time I logged into one of them. So it's in a lot of places.
I think Netgear also has a lot of OpenWRT based systems out there.
I think Netgear was like the OG
Yeah.
of OpenWrite. They're the ones that first did the GPL release that got turned into it. So that's not terribly surprising. All right, let's turn to Benedikt for a minute. And so you said you're kind of the guy that packages the final thing together and maybe makes it a little more business friendly. So let's
I
talk
mean,
let's talk about that.
So the main thing about Emba is it's built in Bash, right? So we have a combination of scripts in the beginning. That's what Mike spoke about. Is we had the idea of combining stuff into something that gets automated. And once or let's say Mike, the Emba team, was at that point where like it was working, and then you had something on the CLI, right? So on the command line interface, you have something you type in, and then you get something out of it. We built an HTML export thing, so you get something that is nice and shiny and clickable. But the issue you're always facing is you have some firmware and you are a team of penetration testers who are essentially trying to work on one thing as a team. So you have certain things one person looks at and certain things another person looks at. And if you do what Ember does on every computer, then you're running into time constraints also. So one of the ideas was to basically centralize the whole thing, put it into a server. So make it a business application in that sense. You upload something, let Ember do the work, and then you get something that everyone can look at without the usual issues of CLI, where everyone works on their own.
Yeah. So do you have any idea of like how popular it's gotten now that you've put that package together? Do you have any idea of like how many businesses are out there using it? How many researchers make use of it?
I think that's a good question for Mike because he keeps track of those things.
Yeah. It is quite important to get a good visibility for an open source project at all, and so I try to track it a little bit. It also helps for arguing my work on our work on Emba a little bit better. And during the last 2 years, we have seen that Emba gets accepted in a very broad way. So there are popping up more and more blog posts out there. So people are talking or writing about using Emba. And we have seen a lot of, let's say, multiple research papers that have used Emba in some way, or at least referenced it. And it looks a little bit they like to show where Emba fails. And this is great because we can then improve Emba. We get a better idea on where Emba gets used and how the people are using it, and we can improve it. So nearly from every research paper, we get new ideas to improve it. And if we are also looking sometimes at Twitter and other social networks, and we have a little bit the feeling as I would say, most of the penetration testers out there that are doing IoT penetration tests from time to time are at least using Emba beside their manual work, just to get an initial overview of possible vulnerabilities, to get an idea where they can dig deeper. As Emba is automating a lot of stuff, you can let it run over the weekend, and you can start with a quick start on Monday morning, much better than starting from zero. If you have let run Emba over the weekend, you get some basic information about the firmware. You get an SBOM. You get all of the things that you can then use for improving your manual tasks. And yeah, so penetration testers are using it, researchers are using it, and we also are from time to time in contact with quite big companies that are trying to establish Emba in some kind of their security processes. One big company has established Emba into their IC development process. The next one has established Emba as a quality gate for third-party components. So I would say Emba is quite solid established. Hopefully we get many more developers that or bug hunters, so that we can improve Emba in the future much more.
Yeah, absolutely. Randal, I know you were curious about some things around people using it. You wanna take it and ask those?
Yeah, and where I'm starting with is, so I understand the basics of pen testing. I don't know how it applies as well to embedded. How much of Emba is unique to the notion of it being firmware? And what kinds of things do you do there? I know, like for traditional pen testing, you're opening sockets, you're trying memory locations, you're trying things, you're trying to recognize known vulnerable libraries, things like that. How different is it at the embedded level, and what kinds of things do you do there?
So I think we need to differentiate a little bit. So if we are talking about penetration testing of firmware, I typically our projects are typically looking like we have the device, so we can poke around with the device like in a typical penetration test, and on the other hand we have the firmware where we can look into firmware to find things that we can verify on the device. So on the device by itself, it's quite classical. So you are looking for interfaces like web interfaces. You're proxying your traffic. You try to inject commands that are executed on the operating system. And on the firmware level, we're doing much more static analysis then. So we can, for example, think about PHP scripts. If the web server is organized via PHP, then Emba identifies the PHP scripts and can do static code analysis on these PHP scripts. And then Emba can point us to interesting areas that we can try to exploit then on the device. So at the end, it's always the same. Emba gives you an idea where something interesting could be, and then you as the responsible tester, you're digging deeper, you're analyzing this possible issue, I would say.
Is it doing things like fuzz testing and like just throwing random data at stuff to see if it breaks? Or is that more, this is more about identification and it requires a human to maybe be trying that kind of stuff?
Yeah, fast testing would be really awesome, but then then such a test would take ages. And,
Yeah.
Emba already takes quite a long time and loves your all your cores of your machine, and we are working behind the scenes on different other projects, and one is a automated fuzzer, but this is not something that is directly into Emba because it just will take too long to bring you the results, and I think this need to be a dedicated project where you can decide which firmware you want to fuzz then after your initial firmware analysis process.
And I also, my friends would kill me if I didn't ask this. Why Bash and not a more capable scripting language?
Bash is the most beautiful language.
No, not even close.
No, just kidding.
Wow.
Bash is so practical. If you think about the beginnings, you're chaining tools together. You're starting at the command line interface. You're chaining tools, and then you're pasting it into a script. This was the beginning of Emba, and so before we thought about Emba by itself, we had a 1,000-line Bash script, and then we structured it a little bit, and it was just working. We gave it a nice and shiny modular structure, and with more lines of code, and it was working. And everyone said that everything will break if you hit the 1,000-line area of your Bash script. And no, we are maintaining it till today, and we have now tens of thousands of lines of code, and it works really smooth. You can't really believe it. If you're researching in the internet, you will read everywhere that no, it's not possible. You can't maintain it. You can't do this, and it's possible.
I have to say, for me, it was also the first major question I had when I came into the project. So, yeah, because like I always thought like there might be an idea to switch once you want to modulate and put it into building blocks where we were always talking about framework and stuff, that we introduced different languages and stuff. But like I'm always astonished, like it's working. Like we do some refactoring and stuff, but
I would be astonished it's working too. So okay, that's enough bashing Bash. I just wanted to get that in there. It was like okay, I could name another 4-letter language that would actually be pretty useful, but I'm going to stop that for now.
We talked with him just last week. That's Java, right?
That's not a scripting language.
It is. Go and listen to last week's episode, JBang. They made Java a scripting language.
Oh, just no. That's just wrong. I'm glad I didn't watch last week's show. I'm glad I missed it so far. I will read the transcript now, though, to see what you're actually talking about, but I don't think I'm going to like what I'm seeing.
Probably we need to think about rewriting Emba in Java scripting language.
Yeah, right. Well, remember now, JavaScript is not Java. Not even close. Those are other ends of the spectrum. Yeah. So what are your biggest concerns now with the project? What are you working on most intensely? And where do you see this going in the future? Mm-hmm.
From an Emba perspective, we can see that the world screams regarding SBOMs. So everyone needs SBOM. Everyone thinks about SBOM nowadays, and we already create an SBOM, but there is a lot of room for improvement, I would say. And this is, let's say, the one of the short-term goals that which we're currently working on. to improve our SBOM capabilities, so that let's say we can position Emba much better for the near future.
Yeah.
And
So I'm curious about the answer to that same question, but on the other side, is the other part of the program Embark?
Embark, yes.
Yeah. So I'm curious about that same question, but applied to Embark. Like what is being worked on there and what's coming?
So the funny thing about Embark is always that it's trying to incorporate everything that we're working on into one front end, let's say. So if we're talking about the whole vision we have with Emba, we always talk about from finding the right firmware, from getting it, to the end, to the fuzzer we just talked about. Like that might be the end goal. Once we had all the already known vulnerabilities and everything, and then we end up with a fuzzing framework or something, which Mike could talk about if he wanted to, but in the beginning, we would have something that is taking firmware from a device, which we have some projects going on. Basically, two of them. The one of them would be to get firmware from a device, and the other one is finding firmware on the internet. If you don't know where to look, basically, it's like scraping and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And the basic idea behind Embark would be to put all of that into one thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool.
That is basically the end goal. That's also, as you can imagine, a lot of work to integrate those things.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think Michael mentioned is when you give a piece of firmware to Emba and to the Embark to the server, it really crunches on it. Like you said, you could fire your CPUs up for the whole weekend. I'm curious, what are we doing with firmware that's requiring so many CPU cycles?
I mean, the thing Mike said about a weekend, yeah, that's the new and the new shiny thing that's coming, or that's behind the curtain. We usually talked about weeks, months. If we throw data sets of firmware in there to find what's working with Emba, what is it finding, what is it not finding. Nowadays it's gotten pretty fast, even though, and the thing with Emba is it's just multi-threading and running modules, so multiple things in parallel. So it's taking basically everything the machine has, everything the CPU will give you. RAM-wise, depends a bit on where in the Emba run it is, how much it will take up, but it really takes up everything you throw at it.
But
that's also the nice thing about Bash, I feel like.
Yeah. But what is Emba actually doing that is so CPU intensive? Right? Are we just are we just unzipping firmware and then doing comparisons, looking for if there's CVEs out there, or are we actually like trying to run all of these binaries through Ghidra to do decompilation? Like what is it that is getting done that's so CPU intensive?
Both.
Okay, that's fair.
Put it this way, because you said unzipping is one part, right? And then decompiling is further down the line, right? So
okay, so those
we are doing more or less everything. It starts with extraction of the firmware. We are doing some binary analysis, so which legacy functions are used in such binaries. We are decompiling these binaries. We are then using Ghidra for further analysis. On the extracted source code, we are using then semgrep for static analysis. Regarding the hot topic SBOM, we are not just reading the Debian database, we are also extracting or reverse the SBOM on a binary level, so that if there is no packaging system on the device or on the firmware, we also get the SBOM out of it. which most of the other tools do not do. And this is quite intense because we need to analyze every binary, every library, and compare all of this stuff against a quite huge, I would say, data set of possible version identifiers that we extracted manually and we built up manually. And at the end, we are comparing then these versions that we identified with the CVE database, for example, to get an overview of how many let's say known vulnerabilities are available for the identified binaries and libraries. And if you think about the firmware, a small firmware of your home router has a few hundred files. If you think about a modern firmware, it's getting bigger and bigger. So we have to deal with we have seen things that they call embedded devices, but it is a full-blown Ubuntu distribution out there. And if you throw these static analysis mechanisms like decompiling every binary, like matching, I would say, 700 or 800 version identifiers against every binary, this is highly resource intensive. And the good thing is, the more CPU cores you have in your machine, Emba is automatically using, let's say, or optimizing the next scan on the number of cores you have, so that it squeezes out your machine as much as possible.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, I know something that some vendors are starting to do. I guess they've been doing this for a long time, and that is shipping encrypted firmwares. Is that something that there's any? Yeah. Oh yeah, we've had to deal with that. Yeah. What is the approach? Does Emba have any tricks to try to get into those?
I would say that we are using on the one hand the classical extraction frameworks like Binwalk or Unblob. We also have introduced multiple dedicated extraction functionalities for such reasons, where some encrypted firmware was documented, or the decryption was documented somewhere in the internet, and we have implemented it directly into Emba. And if it's not documented and none of the known extraction frameworks can handle it, then at the end you need to go back to the hardware. You need to go back to identify a debugging interface, desolder flash, and usually my task is then give the box to Benedikt and say, "Oh, I need to get access to the firmware, please."
Yeah.
Do you guys
Get that off there?
Yeah, do you guys offer like any sort of consulting or work services where someone could say, I need to break into this box, I need to get the firmware off of it, can I ship it to you and you desolder it and extract the firmware for me? Is that sort of in your wheelhouse?
Yeah, but just company internal.
Just internal.
No external consulting. We're just working Siemens Energy internally and testing the stuff that is relevant in this area, but we are not offering such a service to external.
Sure. And I imagine trying to do that, you would run into all sort of legal questions, right? About I don't actually own this piece of hardware, or I don't have all the rights to this code, and then you go in and you go start decompiling it. There are questions that, right, Randal? There are questions you run into when doing penetration tests.
Well, the letters DMCA immediately popped into my head, so that was definitely going to apply here. Yes. Yeah. You don't want to be, without the proper chain of authority. You definitely do not want to be doing pen testing at all. It can lead to unfortunate consequences. I'll just put it that way.
Yes, and for those that don't know, you can go check out Randall's Wikipedia page and get a little more details about what happens when you don't have all of your I's dotted and your T's crossed, and you do a little more penetration than your bosses thought you should have.
Right. For a little while, it looked like this.
Yeah. It was not good. All right, so what about
not a comfortable position?
No,
it's definitely not comfortable. It hurts your wrists. Let me tell you, I do know.
So what about virtualization? Do you have any sort of a mechanism to take the image that you've got now that it's taken apart and run it in something like a virtualized machine to be able to do tests on it there?
If you the original idea from Emba was always we're talking about firmware. So this means that we talk about different architectures. In firmware, you do not have just the x86 architecture. You have some MIPS. You have ARM architecture. You have PowerPC, and all of these crazy architectures. So if you want to run something from this, you always need something that is called an emulator, so that can run code from one architecture in your let's say in your analysis machine, like your Kali Linux. So you have the guest, which is let's say the binary from the firmware. Let's say a BusyBox binary. You want to run a BusyBox binary which was compiled for a MIPS architecture on your Kali Linux, which you're using for analyzing the firmware, which is some x86 architecture, and then you need an emulator like QEMU. And Emba is doing this in multiple areas. So, for example, we try to run every binary in something that is called user mode emulation to drop output to the command line interface to collect the output, and then to analyze the output if there are some version identifiers in it. And this is one of the approaches that we are using. And the second one is something that is called system emulation. And in system emulation, we are trying to bring up the whole firmware with a prepared Linux kernel. We're trying to boot it up and to give it with a few tricks something like a kickstart, so that hopefully the firmware is able to set up the services, set up the network interface, so that we can then interact with the firmware.
I am kind of floored, actually. I expected the answer to that to be no, we're not doing any virtualization, and you guys you're way ahead of me. Emba seems like a very kitchen sink sort of deal where you've just thrown everything in. It's impressive.
Yeah.
It's not even mentioning the Docker by itself. So. You skipped that one, Mike. The security thing with the Docker. Yeah.
We have skipped so many things till now.
Okay,
but we can dig quite deep.
So maybe this is kind of what you're talking about there, but in doing things like emulating the firmware and all of that, I would honestly have to have the consideration, like, what if there is something malicious baked into that firmware? Are you giving that malicious code a chance to run on your infrastructure? Like, do you have any safeguards against something nasty inside the firmware? Is it all properly sandboxed? I guess is the way to ask that.
Properly, wow. That's the good question. Right?
Yeah.
Is it properly sandboxed? I mean, it's been an ongoing theme, I think, for multiple years that we've tried to safeguard running code that's like malicious, because the Docker environment within Emba needs root permissions. So we're still trying to really get behind all the ways it could still get out.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're doing a pretty decent job, but in the end, it's definitely like big disclaimer: do not run something if you know there's something in there, like
Right.
maliciously targeting your host. I mean, the thing we always do is like we run it within virtual environments, and it has a Docker environment, and then the thing actually running is inside a QEMU, but you know.
Layers upon layers that something malicious would have to get out of. So I assume
I know why it's slow now.
Well,
That's the reason we need so many cores. For every security layer, a dedicated core.
That's not a joke. Goodness. And I assume there's things you're doing inside of there that wouldn't work inside like a rootless Podman. It's got to be Docker with root.
We're doing a lot of, let's say we're doing some things that we need root access. We have thought about Podman now for years, but at the end it is a time issue. We need to test everything. We need to test a lot of use cases, find out what is working in this huge code base within Podman, what is failing, and let's say every fail is probably at least some little research project on how important is it for Emba or for the testers out there. Can we just strip it out, or can we bypass it somehow? And this costs quite a lot of time. And so we decided Emba is a research project from this perspective. We have multiple layers of protection, but at the end, an attacker can analyze Emba, can check out the code, can find the bugs, and can exploit them if he wants. I'm quite sure if it is possible, at least in theory, it is possible to exploit it. And if you get a firmware from an untrusted source, if I send you a firmware, then you should definitely throw it into Emba.
It should just look for the string Emba vector or something, and not run the code if it finds that.
Oh, if only it were that easy. Randall, you want to cover some of these that you've got stacked up?
Yeah. I was just going through my notes, things I'd taken before I did the show. AI is a big thing. Everybody's saying AI. Is there any idea that maybe you're going to introduce some AI to this and help fill some of the gaps in, or help extend what you're doing, or maybe try a more brute force approach? Is there any way that large language models or even just neural nets can help you out with this stuff?
Let's say indirectly we had that. Okay, what is indirectly? We had that feature for a long time. I can't tell you the exact date because I don't remember, but we have a whole section of modules that we introduced, and one specific module was for an open AI connection.
Oh,
So
cool.
you're able to put in a API key, and then basically what Emba does is with decompiled code, and especially with script languages, I think, we have this option to ask the AI bot if there's any vulnerabilities in certain code snippets that are previously identified by another tool.
Oh, interesting.
So there is also like a lot of expansion stuff that's possible with that. You can change questions, whatever, because if you wanted to do that. The results, because I've been testing it a bit, the results are, well, do they really give you more? That's the question with AI, I feel like. That's the real question.
The false positives there.
Yeah.
The false positives are probably pretty high.
Yeah. Is it telling you anything that other tools can't? Like,
that's. I'm a little biased because I'm a Google developer expert, but I'd also suggest looking at Gemini's current products because they're really moving far forward and they're recently trained. which means that they're much more up to date than any of OpenAI's offerings at this point.
Interesting.
So you might take a look at that, especially Gemini Pro 1.5. I've been doing a lot of experiments with it, and it's really got some amazing results so far for the stuff I've been throwing at it. So just an idea there. Let's see. I also had a couple more questions. Let's see, what else do I want to ask here? So is this just about Linux-based firmware, or are you planning on expanding it to other operating systems, other firmware types? Is there anything else?
So, that's the question. No. So in the area we are located, we are using Emba. We have to deal with a lot of Linux firmware. Nevertheless, as our usual approach is to throw a firmware before of a manual penetration test into Emba. And Emba gives us a few days later the results. We also have sometimes some UEFI firmware. We have sometimes some RTOS, such a VxWorks or something like this. And we want to get the maximum out of it, although we are not the experts in this area. So we do not want to, let's say, we do not want that Emba is crashing because there is no Linux in it. Then Emba should give us the information that there's a VxWorks, and we are doing a lot of, or we have a lot of modules that are, let's say, file system independent. So you can also use it just on a binary blob, for example, to extract some key material or to find some interesting hashes. And then Emba can do this also on a non-Linux operating system. And additionally, in the field of UEFI, so we do not deal a lot with UEFI analysis, but there is a company called Binary, and they have released an UEFI security analyzer as open source. So we have just put their complete open source scanner, included it into Emba, wrapped it around an Emba module. And as soon as we detect any UEFI firmware, then we fire up this vulnerability scanner now. And so we are also able to provide some kind of value, also on non-Linux operating systems.
Cool. And one last question, I'll throw it back to Jonathan. So results, what's the most unusual thing you've discovered with this? Or just what are some of the practical outcomes of this that make it worth your time?
So
you must have discovered something with this. Or you will be working on this for years
they're now having to do the question of the things we found, what are we allowed to talk about?
Sorry, I didn't realize that would put you at risk.
We can say we're talking quite generic, so nobody knows what we are talking about. So I think it's very often really interesting if you're analyzing established security products that are established there for years now, and you're analyzing them, and you can see that the components that they are using are from the age of dinosaurs, and that they're not security components, and they're not updating their product anymore, or the base product, the operating on the operating system level, and they're just managing the risk, let's say this way. And this is really interesting because often these are established vendors, established products, and then you can see that not only D-Link is using a kernel 2.6 something, also a very established security company is doing the same.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think what was it? There was, cannot remember exactly. There was one company or one product that was destroyed somewhere in the internet. I don't remember it now.
But if I could summarize, what you're saying is that some people who should know better don't always demonstrate that they do.
Yes, and with automated firmware analysis, you get a quite good overview without any manual work.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you know that's usually the thing where we are using Emba a lot. Emba is doing the automated work, and we can see, okay, oh my God, this product is looking really fishy. So we have 10 products, and then we know, okay, we start with this one because this looks fishy.
So
it's like when I'm looking at a piece of code that is operating on a live website that's written in PHP and has a very obvious SQL injection attack, and I go, how long has this code been in here? And this company in particular should know better than to run PHP code that looks like this.
Yeah.
It's a sad experience. It requires some warning on my part, and then I move on and go, well, I'll probably write code exactly like that someday too. So,
and usually these are the vendors that are shipping encrypted firmware updates so that nobody can see their PHP code.
It's encrypted. We don't have to care about it.
Yes.
They don't want you to see how bad it is. That's why they're shipping junk under a golden label. Yes.
Yeah. It's sad how much that happens. All right, so I've got to ask, why open source? Right? Like you guys apparently use this at Siemens or Siemens Energy. It's used for, it sounds like, for a lot of internal use. What was the conversation like saying, hey, we should open source this and release it to the world?
I mean, it started as a project where you're like, okay, I have an issue and there's no tool for it. I mean, I feel like that's the classic open source thing, right? You start in your free time, you start with an idea, and then you write something that you actually need for your work. And then you're like, okay, I feel like since there's nothing out there, why not just open source it? Like, put it out there. And that's basically what happened with Emba. Making it like a security tool for everyone. That's also a big part of the cybersecurity idea, I feel like. That's if you write a security tool, you put it where everyone can use it.
Yeah, I like it. I know some corporations, they get real antsy about releasing internal tools as open source. Was Emba started was it started in y'all's spare time, or was it sort of kind of official as like a company project?
I would say combination. So we started during penetration test, and then you're fascinated. You want to do everything, and then you're running into time constraints, and then you can't sleep, so you start coding in the night. And is it now work time? No, it's not work time because you have already your hours together, so it's free time. Probably most of the guys out, or the open source developers out there, can have a little bit the same story.
Yes.
They are fascinated. So where at the beginning you can say, where is a company time, where is free time, and everything swims together, and you want to solve the problems. And I think it's a mixture of both. We have the time in the company, but we are also spending quite a decent amount of time during our free time.
Yes, I know that feeling. Waking up at 2 a.m, go, I know what's wrong. Then it's like, do I try to put myself back to sleep, or do I go in there and fix it?
And then you need to go up because you can't sleep anymore, and you need to fix it. And then you realize, oh, I fixed this issue, but there's the next one,
Yep.
so I don't need to go to bed anymore.
I think what's worse than either of those is waking up, realizing you have the solution to a problem, and not writing it down and forgetting.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
That's so much worse than anything you've just said.
that's true.
That's really bad.
That's true.
Yeah. I've done that. That's why I know. It's not a fun thing.
Yeah.
I try to get at least something written down when I have an idea in the middle of the night,
Yeah.
so I at least have it for the next day.
Are there any CVEs out there that have a special thank you to Emba? Do you have like a list of this one and this one and this one were found because people were using Emba?
So we have an internal list of our CVEs that were fixed, that we reported to other vendors and that were fixed. But there's nothing out there in the public now.
Okay. That would actually be an interesting project to just have a repository. Now I understand like some of the things you find that you just can't. Right. Like I get that. There are things that will get discovered internally, reported internally, and may never be assigned a CVE number. Like that's fine. That's just how the world works. But it would be very interesting to have a repository where you say, hey, security researchers, if you find a CVE through Emba, shoot us a note here, and then just have like a high score list somewhere on the Emba website. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. So we have a collection of all of the papers and blog posts and mentioning of Emba. So if someone sends us the CVEs that they have found with the help of Emba, then they will definitely get a nice and shiny place there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we are prepared for these reports.
Awesome. So one of the things, I write about security, and one of the things that I try to encourage people, like just that are interested in it, is the barrier to entry for finding CVEs, for finding security problems and getting them fixed, is actually a lot lower than most people think it is, right? Like it's, now I didn't get assigned to CVE, but I got paid a bug bounty for literally just running a trace route and then running a port scan back when I had Starlink internet. And they had set a server up, and it did not have a proper firewall if you were coming from inside the Starlink ISP. And I got paid several $1,000s for reporting that. And this is one of the things that I really like to encourage people on, is like, go looking for things, and if something seems weird. So all of that said, what does the process look like for setting up Emba and Embark? How difficult is it to get started and then feed the latest firmware from your own home router into it? Because there's going to be problems in home router software. How difficult is it to get started and start finding them?
I would say very easy, but maybe I'm biased here. Of course, the easiest way is for us, just tell you, okay, there's a Kali ISO, run a VM on your laptop, and then just do the git pull, git clone, and to an installer, which is very easy. It takes a bit of, I don't know, a few minutes for sure to download and install. The barrier of entry is basically null, I would say, because you can also do it on bare metal. You can install Kali on basically anything, I would say. The only barrier I would see is minimum system requirements, because Emba is, as we talked about, a bit of a beast. So it has some minimum requirements where you can't, like, it won't run nicely below that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
And so is Kali kind of the preferred place to set it up and start using it?
Well, for Emba, for sure. I feel like Mike and we always are on Kali. Embark is designed for Ubuntu, because if you're talking about Linux environments and servers, most people install Ubuntu, right? So that's what is it's intended for. So Emba would work on two Ubuntu versions and Kali. The current Kali. So
Cool.
There's options.
All right, we are. I just saw the time. We are rapidly running out of time, and I want to make sure and ask about community. Like, so what is the community size? Like, do you guys get contributions? Have you had people from outside of your company and outside of the project come by and say, "Hey, I thought it would be cool if Emba could do this. Here's the patch to make it happen," or bug reports. Is that something that is happening, or is it kind of not public enough yet?
So I think we're getting more and more bug reports during the last year. We are getting more and more insights on how people are using Emba. People are talking and writing about it. People are also reporting their bugs and their wishes. We had a few contributors which are directly have started fixing the bugs. But really just a few. So the community is growing, but let's say the community that is interested in also helping is growing very slowly. But the more the community is growing, I'm sure that then also the helping hands will come more and more.
Sure. So if somebody wants to learn more about Emba or Embark, where do they go to learn more? And then if they want to talk to you guys, where is the best place to do that?
Right here.
Right here and now.
Right here.
This will
Everyone
be
get in
gone shortly. It's not going to be right.
So like what's the website? What's the GitHub URL? Is there a Discord server? That sort of thing.
No Discord yet, no.
Oh.
Not that I'm aware of. That's something we should talk about, Mike. I think that's
absolutely.
Thinking about that, yeah.
Currently, the easiest way is going to the GitHub project. If you have ideas, open an issue, open a discussion. If you're writing about Emba or showing Emba or something around Emba somewhere, drop us a note somewhere at GitHub or X or LinkedIn, Mastodon, the usual social networks. We have there a dedicated Emba account which is called Secure Firmware, and we are happy to publish also your papers that are mentioning, or your talks that are mentioning Emba there. If we need to talk in person, like we did it, then drop us a note somewhere over there, and we find a way to get in contact.
Yeah.
And I think, Mike, you're at the next conference, the big one in.
No? Yeah. We have plans going to Black Hat Middle East now. I think in the end of November.
Oh, cool.
So if someone is there, then drop us a note, and we have there a demonstration of Emba at Arsenal, and then just come to our booth, and we can talk about Emba and firmware analysis and all the rest of the world.
Yeah, very cool. All right, we are out of time. I've got to ask each of you the final two questions. It is a requirement. We get in trouble if we don't do it. We'll start with Michael. What's your favorite text editor and scripting language?
So scripting language is definitely Bash. I've now written 30,000 lines of code in Bash, so it needs to be my favorite scripting language.
Yeah.
And I always exited Vim after working on Emba, so this is my favorite text editor. I'm not a master of Vim, but I can exit it.
You know how to get out.
Fine for me. Yes.
Save and exit, not just exit.
Yeah, well, hopefully. All right.
If you're not saving it, it's not sticking.
All right. And Benedikt, same two questions.
Yeah, for me it's somewhere between Python and Bash. I'm more fluent in Python, though.
Understood.
And
I'm sorry.
editor-wise, I would say, not the biggest fan of Vim. I learned it. Normally I stick with Nano.
That's fair.
Easier.
That's fair. All right. Thank you guys for being here. I wish we had more time. We'll have to bring you back maybe after Black Hat. We'll bring you guys back on and talk about what's changed and get in all the questions we didn't get to today. But thank you both so much.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
Yep.
And bye-bye. See
Bye.
you.
All right. What do you think, Randall? You going to go dig the firmware out of your router now and take a look and see if you can find some fresh CVEs?
Well, it's not my router, which is why I'm on Wi-Fi. So it's I live in the basement of a two main story house, and they have the router upstairs, and so that's why I don't have a wire here, which is why we were having troubles before the show actually getting me on the screen, and why I dropped out a couple of times. After we're done taping, I've got some advice for you about how to set up the next show so that it's a little better bandwidth wise. So this was interesting in that I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about the firmware that's in all the devices that are now being used in my life. And now it makes me more scared. So it's like, great. But at least there's some sort of diagnostic tool that at least somebody can run against some release of maybe something that I will use or eventually use or be kept from using because they found bad stuff in it. I like your open source question because it's like that. Unless they're getting a lot of community contributions, this doesn't really pay off as open source unless most of the stuff was already open source and they're just bringing it together and kind of from a potluck perspective where everybody's bringing food and everybody takes food home. It's sort of like it makes sense for it to be open source. So I like that from that perspective. It was a little out of my wheelhouse, so I didn't get a lot of questions.
Oh, that's all right. So, Randall, what you need to do if you decide to start working with this at all is write yourself a custom module to see is any of your code in the firmware. And just like make some sort of trumpet fanfare that plays automatically when it finds, a Schwartzian transform or whatever that is actually in there.
Right. Well, it's like, the usual editor question. For years I said Emacs to that because there's a part of my code in every copy of GNU Emacs.
Right.
So that kind of thing. And Schwartzian transforms show up everywhere. It's kind of crazy how that one's gone kind of spiraling out. So yeah, cool. No, it was a good show. The guests were knowledgeable, and the project is worthwhile and in progress.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Do you have anything you want to plug?
Yes. So this is now a new addition to my semi-regular schedule, as often as Jonathan will let me back. And I've opened for the day because typically my Tuesdays are pretty free, so I think it'll probably work out for at least as often as Jonathan's willing to put up with me. But every Wednesday I tape a live stream show as well on Dart and FLOSS, which are not Dart and FLOSS, Dart and Flutter. Too many FL words.
Yes.
Dart and Flutter. I am a Google developer expert in the Dart and Flutter arena. I'm all in on Dart and Flutter. So, yes, although I was kind of hinting at Perl earlier in the show, I personally haven't written more than 10 lines of Perl code probably in the last year. And but I've written thousands of lines of Dart code and Flutter code and things like that. And so every Wednesday we do what we call Hump Day Q&A, Ask Me Anything, where we get a few experts together. And for some reason they let me on there, and I have no idea why. And we take live questions over YouTube. So if you go to YouTube and look for Flutter Community, and Flutter is anything vaguely interesting to you, please check that show out. We really enjoy the live questions. We get some good stuff doing. We also do some live coding. So it's been a lot of fun doing that week for week for the last, I think, 2 or 3 years. So it's almost been the same burden that I used to have with FLOSS Weekly, but now delivering it into the Dart and Flutter arena. And the problem with not problem, but one of the things to know about the Hump Day Q&A is it runs 2 or 3 or 4 hours long. So at about the third hour, I'm telling Simon, who's now madly typing in, trying to solve that last problem in his live coding, I say, hey, we're starting the fourth hour there, Simon. And he'll finally go, oh, I should probably wrap this up then. Yeah, why don't you? Why don't you? We're down to 22 people watching, so we should probably stop soon.
That's great.
But it's a fun show. It's a great show. I love it. I look forward to it every week. I'm just making notes now about what we're trying to do tomorrow. But check that out. That's probably the biggest place to see me. I also have a Dart and Flutter YouTube channel, which I try to contribute to on a regular basis. So you want to check that out. Just Google Randal Schwartz, Dart and Flutter. You'll find all sorts of good stuff about me and my new career.
Yeah, excellent. So, thank you, sir, for being here. It is good to have you back, and we will make sure. We'll make sure and get Randal in the rotating cadre of co-hosts, so we'll see him again here in a few weeks, and look forward to that. If you want to find my stuff, of course, Hackaday. We appreciate them being the new home of Floss Weekly. Not really new anymore. I've been here for almost a year. I've also got the security column that goes live every Friday morning, and then still over on Twit, we've got the Untitled Linux Show, which is a lot of fun. And if you're into Linux, which I imagine most of our listeners are, you should go and check that out too. We appreciate everybody being here, those that catch us live and on the download, and we will see you next week on Floss Weekly.